This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Tuesday, April 20th. I'm George Thomas. Today, tensions in Minneapolis as the city awaits the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd. And could a Democratic Congresswoman's remarks lead to an appeal? Israelis no longer have to wear masks, so when will Americans be able to drop them as well? We'll talk to our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu loses a key vote. Could he be on the way out? We'll bring you that story live from Jerusalem. And is abstinence actually harmful? Some have claimed it is. But we'll hear from one Christian leader about the impact of today's hookup culture. Those stories and much more on this edition of CBN Newswatch. But we begin in Minneapolis. Folks there waiting the verdict in the murder trial of Derek Chauvin. The decision up to 12 jurors after both sides gave their closing arguments Monday. All of this coming as Minneapolis and cities across the country prepare for possible unrest. CBN's Jenna Browder has the story.
After weeks of testimony, we now wait for the jury to decide the fate of Derek Chauvin. Both sides resting their cases and making their closing arguments clear.
It's exactly what you saw with your eyes. It's what you now know in your heart. This wasn't policing. This was murder.
The prosecution insisting George Floyd did not pose a threat to the officers.
Just a human, just a man, lying on the pavement, being pressed upon, desperately crying out.
And pushing the point that the entire profession is not on trial, just one former police officer. The defense arguing that the entire episode should be seen in context.
A reasonable police officer would, in fact, take into consideration the previous 16 minutes and 59 seconds. Their experience with the subject, the struggle that they had.
And that bystanders seemed like a threat, and the cause of Floyd's death were drug use and heart disease.
The failure of the state's experts to acknowledge any possibility at all, that any of these other factors in any way contributed to Mr. Floyd's death defies medical science and it defies common sense.
Deliberations are now underway for the jury, a diverse group of 5 men and 7 women. 4 black, 6 white, and 2 identifying as multiracial. And as the nation awaits a verdict, there are now concerns a U.S. representative may have disrupted the process. California's Maxine Waters telling protesters in Minneapolis that she's hoping for a guilty verdict.
We got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
The judge in this case weighing in.
I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function.
GOP Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he'll introduce a resolution in the House to censure Waters. Meanwhile, cities across the country are preparing for possible unrest. In Minneapolis, 2,000 National Guard troops are ready to defend the streets. The governor asking for help from Ohio and Nebraska. And deliberations could take anywhere from hours to days or even weeks. The judge telling jurors yesterday, hope for short, plan for long. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thank you, Jenna. The White House is trying to walk back President Biden's calling the situation on the border a crisis over the weekend. The president made that remark during an impromptu conversation with reporters Saturday. The White House has tried to avoid using the word crisis in talking about the record number of migrants crossing our U.S. border. Press Secretary Jen Psaki saying the crisis is in Central America.
He does feel that the crisis in Central America, the dire circumstances that many are fleeing from, that is a situation we need to spend our time, our effort on.
The White House says it will raise the number of refugees it will allow into the country as part of the ongoing situation there. Turning now to the fight against the COVID-19 virus. A new report from the CDC says less than 6,000 cases of COVID have been confirmed in the 84 million Americans who have been fully vaccinated. The CDC said that number from 43 states and territories is likely an underestimate. It still makes the point that the COVID vaccines are actually working. And in Israel, the mandatory requirement to wear face masks outdoors has been lifted, but masks are still required indoors and in large gatherings. And all primary and secondary school children are back in their classrooms. So when will the U.S. be able to drop masks as well? With us now is our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson. Lori, great to have you back on the show. So Israel has dropped its outdoor mask mandate. When will we be able to go without masks here in the U.S.?
Well, George, it all sort of hinges on vaccinations. Israel is #1 in the world as far as the percentage of people who have been vaccinated. So that's the driver behind lifting all these regulations. So to get back to your question about when is that going to happen here in the United States? Well, there are basically two sets of rules for people here in the United States already. People who have been fully vaccinated and people who haven't. People who have been fully vaccinated are those people who are past the 2-week out period from their last shot. So people who get Pfizer and Moderna, those are 2 shots. 2 weeks after your last shot, you are fully vaccinated. People who get the J&J vaccine, that's just 1 and only shot. 2 weeks after that, you're fully vaccinated. And many people, including some at the CDC, say you don't need to wear a mask because you cannot transmit the virus to other people. Some others say, well, that's not settled science. There is a study going on right now, and it should be finished in a few months, and that will be the definitive word on whether people who are fully vaccinated can transmit the virus. So a lot of people are given a lot of leeway as far as whether they want to wear a mask if they're fully vaccinated. We know that some businesses like airlines require you to wear a mask, but by and large, people who are fully vaccinated here in the United States don't need to wear a mask. That's only about 50% of the population. So as more people become vaccinated, the case rates will go down, and that's going to open up our society. So that's where we are as far as, where we are with wearing masks. As far as wearing masks outside, if you're fishing by yourself in the middle of a lake, you don't need to wear a mask. But if you're outside in a crowd, remember we saw those images from Miami at spring break where all these people were crammed into these street parties and nobody was wearing a mask. That's problematic if people aren't vaccinated. And so things like going to concerts and other large gatherings outdoors where people are close together, masks are still recommended for people who are not vaccinated.
Okay, so we're getting some news that the pause on the J&J vaccine may be lifted by the end of this week. I'm curious, was it an overreaction to impose that pause in the first place?
So many health professionals are saying it was absolutely an overreaction because 7 million people have gotten the J&J vaccine. And the reason it was put on pause is because 6 women had these very, very rare blood clots. And so you're talking about 6 people out of 7 million. That is a greater than a 1 in a million chance of this happening to you. And then one of those 6 women did die. So we're talking about 1 death out of 7 million people. That is actually a very good safety record. 1 death out of 7 million. It's actually better than a lot of the other pharmaceutical products on the market, including penicillin and Tylenol. So a lot of people are concerned that, putting the pause on that vaccine might deter some people from getting vaccinated, which could actually lead to more deaths. The good news, George, is there are still plenty of Moderna and Pfizer vaccines to fill in the gap.
Great. Okay, Lori, we'll have to leave it there. As always, Lori, our CBN News medical reporter, appreciate your insights. By the way, she does have a show that comes on every week, and you can find it actually tonight at 8:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suffering a major defeat in an important vote. Now, he may not be able to return to lead the government of Israel. We'll bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. We head overseas to the Middle East, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has lost a key vote in a Knesset committee. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the loss presents Netanyahu with a greater challenge to form a coalition and could even prevent him from remaining as Prime Minister in Israel's next government. Take a look.
The anti-Netanyahu coalition won the vote in the powerful Knesset Arrangements Committee that controls the parliament until a new government is formed. In 2 weeks, Netanyahu's mandate to form a coalition expires when the committee could approve legislation blocking Netanyahu.
The hope would be for the opposition that they could potentially pass laws which would retroactively invalidate Netanyahu from forming a coalition, either on the basis of retroactive term limits, which Netanyahu would have already exceeded, or on the basis of the criminal trials which are currently undergoing, not allowing a prime minister to form a government while under trial.
A coalition of anti-Netanyahu factions, along with help from an Islamist party called Ra'am, won the vote. The leader of the anti-Netanyahu bloc, Yair Lapid, promised a number of positions to Mansour Abbas, the leader of Ra'am. Netanyahu was counting on Abbas's backing to form his coalition, but this time he sided with the anti-Netanyahu bloc. With his 4 seats in the parliament, he's become the current kingmaker in Israeli politics.
There's a lot of people in Israeli society on both sides that really don't want to see an Islamist party, even if it is making steps towards reconciling some of its differences, be the one that determines who's going to be the prime minister and the makeup of the next government.
The vote leaves Israel's political landscape in a state of uncertainty. Blue and white leader Benny Gantz warned about political instability and said, if we don't unite among ourselves, we won't be strong against our enemies.
And Chris joins me now live from Jerusalem. So, Chris, there are 2 parties that are making it quite difficult for Netanyahu to form this new government. Who are they, and why are they not working together?
Well, George, one party is the religious Zionist party, and the other party is that we had in that report, Ra'am, which is a non-Zionist party. So the leader of the religious Zionist party says he won't serve with a party that doesn't believe in the Jewish state, even from the minority, even if they serve outside the government. And the leader of Ra'am, Mansour Abbas, in our report says the leader of the Zionist party has been stirring up incitement against him. Now, the hope for Netanyahu is that he could have got a minority coalition with the support of Ra'am from the outside. And the way that works in a parliamentary government, if you have enough seats, even if you're short of the 61 seats majority you need, and yet one party will serve in the outside the government and not vote against that minority government, you can survive. But the leader of the Zionist party says he won't even serve in a government like that. So right now, it seems like an intractable situation. And so with his 4 seats, in the current math of the Knesset, George, Mansour Abbas is the current kingmaker, and he's taking his 4 seats to the highest bidder, either the anti-Netanyahu coalition or Netanyahu, even if they're part of the Muslim Brotherhood.
So tell us, what can Netanyahu do? As you mentioned, he's got 2 more weeks. What's his strategy?
Well, his strategy, first of all, would try to get defectors. I mean, the 2 parties within the anti-coalition Netanyahu party are actually right-wing parties. One is called New Hope. There's another called Israel Beitenu. And the idea would be for him to get just 2 seats. That's all he needs. If he gets 59 seats plus 2, he gets the 61 majority he needs. And he will try to convince, it may be unlikely, to convince that religious Zionist party to serve with Ra'am. Now, there's other possible scenarios, George. Netanyahu, which seems, unlikely to do either, could step down. He could let another Likud member take over, and that would probably be able to form a right-wing government because, as I said, there's 2 parties in the anti-Netanyahu coalition that are right-wing, and they would probably come in to a party like that. So, and if the left and the right can form a coalition, he would actually be in the opposition. So right now, it's a very unstable situation here, George, politically. And just to add, an anti-Netanyahu government, that would be inherently unstable as well, if they can do that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, so last 30 seconds here, all of this happening in the context of a country known as Iran that continues to pursue its ambitions of acquiring nuclear weapons. Where does this put all of that?
Well, for the first time in a couple of months, the Security Cabinet met on Sunday and about the Iranian situation. So it's a dangerous situation, not only with Iran, but many people here are concerned about the Biden administration and where they're going in these Vienna talks and going and restarting the Iranian nuclear deal. There's a shadow war going on the high seas between Israel and Iran. And we're here in Israel, they're seeing Iran getting closer to weapons-grade material for a nuclear bomb. So a volatile situation while there's an uncertain political situation. Very dangerous time here in Israel right now, George.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks again for your insights. Appreciate you coming on the broadcast. Folks, up next, a recent New York Times story talked about how an abstinence pledge back in the 1990s shamed a generation of evangelicals. But it said nothing about the damages of the modern hookup culture. We'll hear from one Christian leader how she responds right after this.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to the broadcast. A New York Times article recently claimed that abstinence before marriage does not work and, in fact, is damaging. The story claims Christians who followed the purity movement from the 1990s are now struggling with, quote, unforeseen aftershocks decades later. But what it fails to mention is the damage the hookup culture has on individuals and society. Author and pastor Dr. Paula Price told CBN's The Prayer Link that part of the reason why the hookup culture is so popular is because the church has done a very bad job of showing the benefits of waiting until marriage. Take a look.
So I want to first of all quote something from this article that says that abstinence movement teaches women to hate their bodies as the source of temptation, and it teaches men to hate their minds, which lead them into lust and sexual immorality. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's exciting that I get an opportunity to speak on it because I was part of one of the largest purity movements that we had. And that's one thing I can say was not taught. As a matter of fact, what was taught is that you cherish your body, that you value what God has given you as a gift, but also as a particular offering to the continuance of life, but human dignity. I'd like to end that thought by saying, Christianity, Jesus Christ is the only one that really values and cherished female dignity. And we need to play that up instead of letting it get swept under the narrative of those who don't understand.
Dr. Price, can you explain how the hookup culture is a trap for women and even for men?
Yeah, well, it is a trap. The hookup culture is simply about being indiscriminate about the gift that you have, which is your body and your sexuality. And, you know, I'm going to go on record saying something that most people haven't heard, and that is when we look at Scripture, God literally condemns sex everywhere but outside of marriage. Now, there's a reason why he does that, and of course, one day we'll be able to walk through that. But the fact that it's indiscriminate, I mean, we're thoughtful about the cars we buy. We're very reluctant about the mortgages we take on. We're reluctant about everything material. But the thing that really determines our success in this life and our destiny out of it, we ignore and we treat it casually.
Amazing, amazing. And Dr. Price, do you think the church is doing a good enough job at showing the benefits of waiting until marriage?
I do not. I do not. I think the church unintentionally and certainly unwittingly became literally a supporter of this by indulging, I read this article, and by indulging the immature emotionality of the congregants, many of which are young people. I think that many parents, and that's in today's time, many parents get very absorbed in their children's emotional discomfort. So anything we can do to appease it and placate it, we do. We give them cars too young. We let them handle relationships too young. When I think about dating and the hookup and all of this, you know what I think? If we have a 65+% divorce rate, how helpful is this to that end?
Exactly. What message would you share right now with young people who are facing so much sexual temptation?
The one thing I would do is I would say shut off the world. You realize that these temptations don't just happen in peer-to-peer contact. These temptations also take place in video games, in television, in movies, in all sorts of, even schooling, things like that. if you're not wanting to be involved with something or infected by it, you usually keep your distance. If broccoli makes you sick, you stay away from it. And so my first thought would be to find ways to replace, not to isolate, because isolation makes you vulnerable, but find ways to replace all of that time spent on subliminal messages that are seducing you to destroy yourself.
Good word.
Fantastic. Great word.
Excellent word.
Dr. Price, thank you so much for being with us today on the Prayer Link.
Thank you.
You can watch the Prayer Link tonight at 6:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, Prison Fellowship teaming up with Christian rapper Lecrae to bring hope to those in prison. We'll have that story up next.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Prison Fellowship, the nation's largest Christian nonprofit serving prisoners, former prisoners, and their families, has teamed up with Christian rapper Lecrae to observe Second Chance Month in a big way this year. Prison Fellowship Senior Vice President Heather Rice-Miners told the Christian Post the initiative is used to help people know about the barriers that former prisoners face when trying to turn their lives around. Prison Fellowship is working with churches across the country. Christian rapper Lecrae loves to connect with people that society has forgotten. Oh, that's awesome. Well, folks, that is it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you will join us again next time, folks. From all of us here from the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network, have a great rest of the day. Goodbye, and God bless.